Happy Tuesday. It's Tuesday, January 29th day of the year. Welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. A few years ago, I wrote and performed a play called Speak of Me as I Am. The play took place in a neighborhood barbershop in Birmingham, Alabama, and it was about the barbershop and the men who went there. Took place over 3 Saturdays. One of my favorite projects because barbershops, especially some of the ones I've found in the quote Black community, tend to be lively, a place for storytellers, and just plain fun, in addition to a place where you can get a haircut. In some places, it can be like a social club. The play was a hit. We performed it in Birmingham, Los Angeles, Pensacola, Florida. I mention it today because today's show features a barber who is also an artist. As a matter of fact, we have some of his art in our home, and you'll get to see some of his art today on the show. Our G-list guest today is Art Jenkins, the man known to many in the Fort Walton Beach area as Mr. J. He's Art Jenkins of Creative Innovations by Art Jenkins. Is well respected and loved in the community. He's been widely acknowledged for his countless contributions to art shows, contests, and festivals throughout Florida's Panhandle. And he's going to talk to us today, tell us about this festival, this upcoming festival, African American Arts Festival. So we look forward to having Mr. J on today. We look forward to that conversation. Our show today, of course, is sponsored by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. So let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl customizes the solution that fits your needs. So let's go to our roundtable regulars, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker, and see what they got for us this morning, what's going on in their world. Good morning, Barbara Wallace Edwards.
Good morning, Thom. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing good. A little chilly this morning, but otherwise doing great. Thank you.
Are you in Birmingham?
I am in Birmingham for a week or so.
I think you have a what do they call that thing? You have to be there for like 2 weeks out of the year, out of the month, right?
Yeah, in order to
it's a mandate.
It's a mandate.
In order to qualify for whatever it is you're qualifying for.
To be a resident for the state of Alabama, I have to qualify to be home for
the
a little
city
while.
Of Birmingham.
Right.
Okay, good deal. What's happening in your world, Barbara?
Well, Thom, the Super Bowl is set. I don't know if your team made it or not. Mine didn't. I was pulling for the Ravens this year, and they didn't. But Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are going back for this is the 4th time in 5 years. I think they're going to be in the Super Bowl.
I think something like that.
Yeah.
6 years. They've been. But
he's some type of quarterback.
He is, and when Michael comes on, we'll discuss it a little bit more in detail. But I think I was for the Ravens because Dixon is a big Ravens guy. We went to one of their games back in December, and he was already planning to go to the Super Bowl, so it saved me a lot of trouble. But I just think they got out schemed, man. I think they blitzed. Kansas City blitzed almost every down,
right?
And they couldn't block all those guys. You know,
you're right. I think they did.
Lamar is great, but Lamar ain't no damn superhero.
Right, he couldn't do it by himself. So he needed a whole team and the coaching staff to make some good decisions, and I think that was the downfall.
I didn't even on yesterday. I didn't watch any of the sports shows because I didn't want to hear it because most of them. And I saw where Stephen A. Said something about quarterback, Jackson.
Right.
And I mean, and they made a lot of mistakes. I mean, Kansas
Yes.
City just was better.
Yes.
That was,
The better team did win. I agree.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
were
so-
better, and they had the best scheme. And man, you know, if the way they rushed him, there was nowhere to go.
Yeah, he didn't have a chance. He
I
really
mean,
didn't have a
they
chance.
rushed in their lanes, so they made sure they hemmed him in.
Right.
And you know, sometimes you rush and one guy rushes more than the other, and he can escape.
Right.
But Kansas City did an incredible job. They really
Yes,
did.
they
And Mahomes
did.
was just Mahomes.
Yeah. And I didn't watch the other game, the Lions and the 49ers, but I heard that one was crazy too, because the Lions were ahead by 21 points or something.
Yeah, at least 17.
Then, yes, and then lost it. Like, man, how did that
Well, I didn't know. I actually nodded out on the second half because I thought they had it. But
right.
Apparently they went for it on fourth down 3 or 4 times and didn't get it.
Oh,
wow. And then that gave the other team great field position.
Yes.
And that was stupid. But you know,
absolutely. And again, sounds like another coaching mistake there.
He's made his reputation on being a coach who goes for it on fourth down.
Yes.
And but when I was watching the Ravens, and I say the same thing about the 49ers, they forgot that the object is to win. Yes. And, you know, it's like the guy when he went down there and he stuck that ball out and he fumbled down the goal line. Where you're on the goal line,
right?
Just go down.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's first down, now you're on the 1 yard line.
Right.
So you can win the game. You know, you don't have to be a superhero and stick the ball out there.
Right.
So and then the guy was taunting. I mean, they just did a lot of things that you can't do.
Right.
Against a team that's your equal and you trying to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, hopefully they'll get another shot, but they may never get another shot.
That is so true. You have to take advantage of them while you have them. And yeah, they blew that one.
Let's get Michael on here. Michael Walker, how you doing, brother?
I am doing well, TG. How are you this morning?
Good. Let's get your take on the game.
All right. Good morning, Barbara, to you.
Good morning, sir.
My take is this. I think that Kansas City got into the heads of the Ravens. And what I mean by that, and Thom, you're familiar with this, you know, sometimes you playing a team and they try to get into your mind and cause you to lose focus on what you need to do to win the game and get your emotions all riled up. And there were several instances where the Raven players were, you know, getting penalties for personal fouls and doing a lot of stuff that really gave the advantage to Kansas City. In particular, in times when they were either moving the ball or stopping Kansas City, they commit a foul, and that would give the ball right back to Kansas City. So when you're in championship type games, you can't do things to beat yourself. And I think that's what the Ravens did. I have to say that it really irks me. Some of these sports writers, they have a propensity to try to discount certain quarterbacks based on their natural tan. And one particular writer said that the Ravens' issue is still Lamar Jackson. And basically said it was his fault for them not winning. And, you know, my comeback to that is Lamar Jackson didn't fumble the ball at the 1 yard line.
Right.
He did not get up and taunt the Kansas City player, which was no reason to do so. But Kansas City was doing little cheap things like that to get into their heads, and they allowed them to do that. There were several passes that he threw that the receivers didn't fight for the ball and didn't get the ball, you know. And by no means am I saying it's perfect. And he even, you remember when Lamar caught his own pass and stuff when he threw the ball?
Wasn't that incredible?
Yes, yes.
And he had the presence of mind to say, let me go get that ball. And he caught it and turned it into a play.
Right.
The sports writer tried to demean that.
Well,
you know?
and there were a couple of things. That interception in the end zone, That was pass interference, man.
Yeah,
I mean, he hit the guy, the ball's in the air, and he's riding the guy like a horse.
Right.
Well, there were two like that. There were two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right after that one, he threw another one to the guy that was kind of out in the flat. It was in the mid part of the field, but he's going to the sideline, and the guy was grabbing him. And the ball, he could have run under the ball, but he had no chance because he was being held. So there were two calls like that. You know,
two major calls that were missed. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I just think, you know, that's why I didn't watch it, because I knew it would be, well, it was Lamar's fault. It was Lamar's fault, and I agree with you about the quarterbacks. The reason I didn't watch the talk show was because I knew they were going to be blaming it all on Lamar. And Kansas City, to me, I mean, I was for the Ravens. You know, my son's for the Ravens. He's a big-time Ravens guy. He used to live in Baltimore. But Kansas City put on a hell of a show, man. I mean, they played like champions.
Right.
The Ravens played like people who don't know how to be champions yet.
Right.
You know, you play differently when you're playing for a championship. You don't stand over people and taunt them. You don't reach the ball out. You know, you don't do those things because that's not the way you win a championship.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing is, you know, supposedly the coach, John Harbaugh, had told his defense that we want to make Patrick Mahomes feel us, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And that they were not going to let Patrick get out there and scramble and then look for a targeting or some call like that, that if he ran, they were going to make sure that he felt the pain.
Right.
Well, you have to do that in the context of the game.
Right.
And it's a way that you do things like that without calling attention to yourself. Case in point, one of the defensive tackles were going after Patrick. He threw the ball and he brought his arm around and clubbed inside the head. Well, that was automatic foul right there.
Right.
You know, the ball was gone. So why would you do that? That's not making him feel it. You make him feel it when you're ready to tackle him and he hasn't thrown it. Then you make him feel it. Going down to the ground, you stick an elbow in his ribs or something like that. You know, something that the ref can't see.
You making your team feel it with all the damn 15-yard penalties you keep getting. You know?
Yeah, you heard your own team.
You know, when we went to the Ravens game back in December, the Ravens have a reputation of being bullies, of being the toughest team on the block. We'll knock your head off kind of team. And Kansas City used that against them.
Right.
You know, you can't club Mahomes in the head. I don't care who you're playing. That ain't gonna happen.
That's right.
You couldn't breathe on Tom Brady.
Right.
You can at least hit Mahomes, but you can't club him in the head. You know, come on.
Right.
So I think they've got a lot to go back and watch that film and see a lot of instances, a lot of plays, see at least 10, 15 plays that they could have made that would have turned that game around.
Turned it around. Right.
And I didn't watch Detroit. I thought Detroit, man, when I guess when I tuned out, it was what? Detroit had like a 17-point lead. They were killing
at least 17. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 24-7, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
So who knows, man? So anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm for Kansas City in the Super Bowl, so we'll see. Now the 49ers will play smarter. You know, that's what I'll say. They'll play smarter. I don't think the Ravens played smart.
Right.
Yeah, well, you know, they want to blame Lamar on this, but what about the offensive coordinator? What about the plays that he drew up?
Right.
And normally you make adjustments after halftime and stuff, but I didn't see enough adjustments to offset what Kansas City was doing from a defensive standpoint.
The Ravens run a play where, and it's beautiful, where Lamar fakes it. You know, they've been running the ball, and he fakes it, and he comes out that other end, and you don't even know he's got it till he's already past the line of scrimmage. And then he can go for 10, 15, 20 yards. Well, they never could run that because they couldn't run the dive plays. Right. So that there was no fakery to it. You know,
Right.
I guess
The
that's the
defense was able to
word.
read that. Yeah, right. It created new words this morning,
That's
Tom.
right. Fakery. You know what you know what I'm talking about.
We know.
Okay. So, Barbara, what else you got for us? Well, we got a few minutes here.
Well, Tom, I don't know if you've been reading the news about Birmingham Southern. Birmingham Southern is an old historic college here in the city of Birmingham. For those that don't know, that was backed by the Methodist Church. And the school is in dire financial straits right now. It has the possibility of closing. And the Alabama legislature had actually voted to loan them so many millions of dollars to help them kind of get themselves afloat. And the state treasurer stopped it. So he said that he didn't believe that the university could pay the money back. And so the city of Birmingham kind of came to the rescue and helped them out temporarily, hoping that, they had appealed this decision by the state treasurer. But it still doesn't look like, unless a miracle happens, that they're going to get that money that they need. So there's a chance that the school could close. And that's just, it's really a tragedy that could possibly happen. Again, the school has been there, Birmingham, for hundreds of years. And
it's in the city of Birmingham.
It's the city of Birmingham, yes.
It's in what is a predominantly Black area.
Absolutely.
Of the community.
Right.
And that's, I just remember when Neil Birdie was running it, it was just, it was almost sacred.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a treasure here in the state. And so many people have, gone to school there. And it will be a shame if the state allows that school to close its doors. So
and one thing I can say that the long-term effects of something, when I was doing the news at Channel 42, this was in the 70s, or maybe early 80s or whatever, a young woman got killed.
Yes, I remember that.
Quinette Sheehan at the, I'll never forget her name, at the, I can't remember my name half the time, but I won't ever forget hers.
Right.
She went to the little hamburger joint there on the corner, and these guys kidnapped her. Yes. It was horrible, man. I was, and I was in my news car, and I had my police scanner on, and I heard them, and so I went over there, and they found the car, and they thought she was in the trunk. Wow. And I had my cameraman, and I was standing right over that trunk, and they popped that trunk up, and she wasn't in there. And I was so glad, because I didn't want to see it.
I know. That would have been a terrible sight.
It was. And then they found her later. They found her body naked, and there was a bullet hole in her back. And I think that was the beginning of the downfall of Birmingham Southern. Although they didn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
They were located in an area that people can say, well, that's not a safe area.
Right.
And you know how that goes. So
absolutely,
that's like the black quarterback thing.
Right. Right.
So anyway, Michael, what you got, Michael?
Well, I have a couple things. Just one thing in particular. Imagine if you were a small business owner and you're trying to develop property, build a single family home, and you have a water meter installed, but you haven't done anything else, just put a water meter out there. And then in 30 days, you get a bill for $8,899, supposedly for using 305,184 gallons of water.
It was a flood.
It had to be days.
Now, just to give you a little context, the Environmental Protection Agency says the average U.S. household uses around 300 gallons of water a day, which equates to 9,000 gallons of water a month. That was 296,184 gallons shy of what Revived Construction used on an empty lot, where there's no plumbing, there's no fixtures, there's nothing there.
How could that
be?
And
the bills continued to pour in until they reached $29,690. And he went to the Atlanta Watershed Management Appeals Board, and they basically said, well, the water was either lost via leak or stolen. And he said it was kind of like a kangaroo court because they were trying to prove that he stole the water.
Stole it? Why would he steal the water? To take it where? Where was he taking the water to?
Exactly.
Probably was taking it up there, giving it to Lamar Jackson. You know, it was Lamar's fault.
It's Lamar's fault. Oh my God.
He lost his appeal. And by the way, Fox I-Team said that 80% of the people who disputed their water bills with the Atlanta Watershed Management lost their appeals. So there's something going on here. Yeah. He appealed that decision, and they went back, revisited, and said, okay, yeah, you owe us $219.
$219?
$219. Wow. And then shortly after doing that, they reversed it again and came back and said, no, they made a mistake. The bill was $29,000 and whatever. Jeez. And he even had a senior management employee that was siding with him saying there was a mistake. The meter was faulty, but they still held to their guns.
Wow. So surely
that was a big difference between $219
a huge difference
and $29,000.
So Michael, what's the next step? Surely there's another appeal process or something.
Yes, I think he's probably going to have to take it to the court, actually, because these people just refuse to budge, and they're being unreasonable.
Does that come under the city of Atlanta?
Yes, it does. It's the Atlanta watershed, so he's probably going to have to go there and get a lawyer to fight this. That's
crazy.
That's a shame.
Well, and the lawyer is going to cost him so much money,
right,
just to fight it,
right?
Yes. Yes.
Unless he can go to one of those services that provide attorneys.
Right.
Well, he's not going to get there because he's a small business owner, and they're out to get small business owners. So all small business owners are crooks in their mind. So he's not going to be able to get any help that way. But
that's where common sense come in. I mean, the people on the board for the Atlanta Watershed Board,
what'd you say, Barbara? What did you say?
Common sense.
Hey,
it doesn't exist much anymore.
Grandmama said if common sense was so common, everybody would have it.
That's right. That's why I asked what she said. She want to inject common sense in here. There's no place for that.
Well, everyone should have it, though. They just don't. I know they don't, but they should.
I mean,
go ahead.
It's just a plot of land. There's not a house. There's no plumbing. There's nothing there. They just put a meter there so that they could tie into the water line as they start to work, and they get a bill like this. And here's the other thing that I guess it's this time of the year. There's a lady in Maryland who was shocked when $17,000 disappeared from her bank account, despite having 2 authentic verification on her phone. How did that happen, you might ask? I'm glad you asked that question. Somebody went to a Verizon store in California and bought a new phone and a new SIM card and used her telephone number and convinced them that was their telephone number. So the Verizon store put the SIM card in with her phone number on it. It got activated and they wiped out her account. Because by putting in the SIM card, having the passwords and everything in there and your authentic verification PIN numbers and all of that, it just opened up everything that she had on her phone that she thought she was being protected. And they wiped $17,000 out of her account. Out in California, she lives in Maryland.
Don't they you can't just give a phone number out. You have to have ID as well. I mean, they ask for your driver's license and everything when you set purchase a phone and make these set up an account.
Well, you're right, Barbara. It happens to me when I go to T-Mobile. I own the Walker agency, and I want to do something. They make me get my driver's license, make me show something that I own the company.
Right.
Maybe it has something to do with the way I look. I don't know. They didn't ask this person out in California anything. He just gave them this lady's phone number, and they put it on the SIM card. He put the SIM card in a new phone, and voila.
Wow.
One good thing about it, and how she first was made aware of it was she got an email from Verizon congratulating her on the new purchase of a phone.
Yeah.
which she did not do.
Right.
And said, hey, I didn't buy a new telephone.
So what's the status? Where did she go? What's
Well,
that?
the bank ended up giving her the money back after she showed them what happened. And then now the bank is going to go after Verizon, and Verizon is not talking right now. But the bank did help her when they realized what happened, and that because the bank contacted her and told her that she had just changed her passwords. And she said, no, I didn't. And so the bank kind of helped her.
And that's, I tell people all the time, just like someone tried to go into a bank and actually change they did go into a bank, change all of my information on one of my accounts. And if the bank had notified me and said, we recently got the request to change your address and, phone number and all this. And I'm like, no, and I probably would have laid that aside and not thinking about it, thinking that was just a mistake. We have to take everything and take action on it these days. You can't just say, yeah, that's probably just a mistake they made.
And what's interesting is all these technological things are supposed to provide more security. But when you was just walking into the bank, taking care of it yourself,
right?
It was
the
only way they got your money is if somebody came in there with a gun and robbed the bank.
Right.
And I don't know. All this technology ain't the best thing in the world.
You add the technology and a few crooked people together, and it's a disaster.
Yeah,
it is. And I'll close and say congratulations. The Atlanta Falcons hired Raheem Morris as their new head coach for the Falcons, gave him a 5-year contract.
Well, good.
I'm glad to hear that.
And that's well deserved. And they hired him instead of Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
And Belichick, everybody thought Belichick was going to go to the Falcons, and Raheem, 47 years old, he ended up getting the job.
Well, Atlanta's kind of stylish, and Belichick walks around with that towel over his head, cut a hole in it. Like, ain't much style in Belichick.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm not sure he would have fit in well with that Atlanta crowd, but
the hoodie. They call it a hoodie.
A homemade hoodie.
A homemade hoodie. That's right. Belichick has his own style.
Let's move on. Sean's got a minute for maybe a couple of minutes. I don't know. Good morning, Sean. You got a minute?
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute. We're in the home stretch of January, and do you know what that means? It's almost Black History Month. I know we aren't there yet, but I figured we'd start a little early. On January 31st, 1865, the U.S. House of Representatives passes the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, abolishing slavery in America. The amendment read, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction." In September 1862, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all enslaved people in areas that were still in rebellion against the Union. The election of 1864 brought Lincoln back to the White House along with significant Republican majorities in both houses, so it appeared that the amendment was headed for passage when the new Congress convened in early 1865. The amendment passed 119 to 56, just barely above the necessary 2/3 majority. Several Democrats abstained, but the 13th Amendment was sent to the states for ratification, which came in December 1865. With the passage of the amendment, the institution that had shaped American history was eradicated. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute.
Thank you, Sean. When you started out talking about February, I thought you were going to talk about Valentine's Day and tell us about your latest boyfriend. But I guess not, huh? Yeah. That'll get her going. Anyway, let's go to our G list. Our G list guest today is Art Jenkins, known to many as Mr. J. Art Jenkins has of Creative Innovations. He's known as Mr. J at Mr. J's Barbershop, or just Art in the community of Fort Walton Beach. Very well respected and loved by many. Let's hear from Art Jenkins. Good morning, Art. How are you, man?
Good morning, Thom and crew. How you guys this morning?
Well,
We're doing great. We're doing great. Now, you're in your studio. Can you just give us a little tour of your studio right quick before
Sure. Don't mind the junk. This is a working studio. I just want you to know that. So
okay.
The mess you see is a work of an artist. All right. Over in this corner here, this just have some of my work in the background. I'll see if I can get you a little bit closer there.
There you go. There you go.
Most of these pieces are acrylic pieces. I work in acrylics. I work in pen and inks, and I work in charcoal. I work in almost any medium. If you look over this side, this is one of my latest pieces of the tribute to Ali, and that's done in acrylics, and it's a collage. And if you look at it real closely, you have a lot of photos of Ali in the background. And of course, you know, you got the float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble.
Rumble, young
And
man,
over here,
rumble.
yeah. And over here, we have a few political pieces, a few African pieces. And if you look at most of my pieces, they have a lot of vivid colors. I love the vivid colors as an artist, and I'm a very creative color artist. As you look around, these are my own creations. Very seldom I do copy work unless somebody wants me to copy something. I might steal a little bit from somebody, but most of the time, I usually make it my own piece. If you look down here, these are some pen and inks and color pencils. You can see the 5th Annual Black Heritage Festival poster right there. Mm-hmm. And over here, I got a piece about Hank Aaron. It's called Hammer and Hank. It's a pen and ink. And back in the back here, get a little closer, see if you can see this George Floyd piece. And it's just a tribute to all those who were unjustly killed over the years. And the thing about that is, you know, as I was doing these pieces, so many people getting killed, I had to make more pieces. Wow. And if you look over in the corners, this is my junk corner. But you see a few ribbons from some of the shows I've done in the past. I'm an award-winning artist here locally. And nationally, I used to do a lot of work overseas, trying to get you a little bit closer to some of the work. Yeah. And this is one of my latest pieces here, this big, beautiful piece here. And it's amazing. People say, how do you think of it? I don't think of it. God gives me the gift, and it happens sometimes. This is my little work table. This is a work table in the studio. This is where I do my thing. If you look around.
That's great, man.
A little bit of history, a little bit about the family.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I know, and you guys have a festival coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about the festival before I go to Michael and Barbara?
Sure. We have an artist group here in Fort Walton Beach called the Alliance of Ebony Artists, and we were formed about 4 years ago. And locally, we were having shows because there weren't any art shows for African Americans here in this town. And I got together with a group of artist friends that I met over the years, and I said, hey, let's form this group and start doing some things and letting people know that there are African American artists in this town who are working artists. And from that moment on, we've been moving forward. For the last 4 years, up until COVID, we were really mounting a really good show, and the last one we had was absolutely amazing. So when COVID came, it kind of killed everything, and now we're starting to back up. So this year is going to be the 5th annual African American Heritage Show on the 21st, 24th of February from 10 to 6 at Striving for Perfections Ministry Church. We're going to have praise dancers. We're going to have spoken word. We're going to have some singers from out of town. We're going to have some gospel singers. And we have a young lady coming. Actually, she's coming from Atlanta, but she's from here. And she's going to be sort of like our star attraction. She was just on Atlanta TV5 about a couple of weeks ago because she's working on a weight challenge. Beautiful young lady. She went to school with my daughter, and I just been knowing her ever since she was a little girl. And she's going to be one of our performers at the show. We're going to have food trucks. Hopefully we'll have something we're going to have an art show for elementary school, middle school, and high school. And the thing about it is all the kids' artwork will be displayed out in the auditorium. And then we're going to have artists from our group going to be there. And then we're going to have vendors. We're going to have people who are authors. We have NAACP, and I think one of the fraternities, they're going to bring the blood bus out, So we're trying to make it a super, super big event to let people know that even though it's a small African-American community in this town, it's a lot going on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you something I was going to ask you here. Well, let me just go to Barbara and see what she's got. Barbara, what you got for Mr. J?
Good morning,
Yes.
Mr. J. How are you this morning?
I'm always good, Barbara. I don't know no other way to be, dear.
That's great. That's great. Looking at your artwork, it is absolutely beautiful. And I know it's probably hard to just select a piece that you enjoyed most, but which of your pieces of art that you would just say that's my favorite piece of all time? Is there any one piece?
Yeah, I got one piece in here, actually, and I've had it for over 40 years.
Wow.
And it's my favorite piece. Right now, it's not hanging because I got so much other stuff hanging. But it's an African piece, an African mask piece. I was overseas when it was done. It was done in 1976. And when I first got here, I did my first, Thom might know what Billy Bowlegs is. I did my first Billy Bowlegs show. And this was one of the pieces that won an award. And what makes it that piece appeals to me is because everything that's in that piece, I hand carved the frame. And it's an African piece. And everybody that sees this, where did you get the frame from? They don't realize I used to be a wood carver. And I hand carved everything that's in the pictures, hand carved into the frame. So it's one of the favorite pieces, and people have offered to buy it. I won't sell it. That's one of the few pieces I've owned over the years that I won't sell. Yeah.
Well, mentioning people offer to buy it, but you won't sell it. So if people outside of Fort Walton, people watching this show, whatever, like some of your art and they want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Okay, they will get in contact with me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, but also I have a website called www.creativeinnovisions.com. And my number is 850-357-1083. They can get in contact with me almost anytime because I'm like most artists, I never sleep. So I'm always up, and people always ask me, how do I work in a barbershop and then I have time to do the artwork? I says, well, I make the time. And that's the difference. A lot of people don't understand that, and they say, well, when do you do it? I say, why are you sleeping? I have strange hours like most artists, most artists have weird hours, So my thing is like, I go to work at the barbershop. I get off from the barbershop, I come home. I smile at the wife, eat a little dinner, talk with my grandson. And somewhere around about 10 o'clock, I'll go in the studio. And I probably won't come out till about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. People say, huh? I say, yeah, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I'll take a nap. I'll get up about 7:30, hit the gym. But the good thing about it is I've just cut my hours back at the barbershop. Now I'm only there 3 days a week, whereas I used to be there 5 or 6 days a week. So that has afforded me to do more artwork now. Yeah.
Michael?
And like I say, if you want to find me, Instagram, TikTok, I'm all over the place. That's it.
Mr. J. And you're known by, what name are you known by then? All of, is it Mr. J or Art Jenkins? As
far as the artwork is concerned, everybody just calls me out. My real name is Arthur. Nobody calls me that but my mama. She's gone. So I tell people all the time, just call me Art. They've been calling me that Art for years now. And when I'm at the barbershop, I'm Mr. J. So I answer to either one.
All right, Michael.
Well, thanks for being here with us, Mr. J or Art. I want to ask a question that's similar to Barbara's, but a little bit different. Rather than what's your favorite piece, what would you describe as your most thought-provoking piece of artwork and why?
Mike, I'll tell you what. I would say most of my the name of my business is Creative Innovations. So what that states is that most of the work that I do are visions that are in my head. And people ask me all the time, how do you think of it? And I tell them all the time, I don't think of it. Almost all my original pieces are thought-provoking. Why? Because they come from a higher power. I don't sit down and say, okay, today I'm going to do this. Sometimes I sit down and this is the truth. I'll put a mark on the paper. And from that mark, things evolve. You know, sometimes people, I went to a little drawing class the other night, and a guy had a basket up in the class. And we just did a pen and ink. I did a pen and ink of the basket. And when I left the class, I said, now, what can I do to make this pen and ink, make this basket come alive? I turned that basket into an African drum. And that big old pretty piece right here, I'm going to show it to you again, that you saw with all the colors in it. This is the basket right here. And I turned it into what I call the African drum. And it has a lot of African symbolism, a lot of spiritual symbolism, because all my work has spiritual symbolism. Why? Because I know that the power comes from higher up. And whatever I do, I know that it's God driven. And the reason being I say that is because I'm one of those artists that I can draw what I see. I never have artist block. You know, sometimes people say, oh, I have writer's block. I have, what you gonna block? I don't have block. Why? Because I can just sit down there and I can just create things. Sometimes the people say, hey, can you draw this? Yeah, I can draw it. I can draw what I see. That is a true blessing, because I have friends who are meticulously realistic artists. That's all they do. And they always come to me, art. How do you think of it? I can't be creative. I can just draw what I see. And I said, well, everybody's blessings is different. I just happen to have that blessing that I can draw what I see. And if I can't see it, I can create it. So when you see my work, a lot of times, well, when I do something realistic, they be like, oh, I didn't know you do that kind of stuff. I said, yeah. Because when I first learned to paint and draw, everything was fruits and flowers and still lifes and landscapes. That's what when I was a kid. But as I got older, I started doing, I guess you could say, started doing me. That creative vision that's in my head, that thing that keeps me going around in my head. And people say, how do you do it? I said, I wish I could really explain it. I only give the gift to God. He gives me the gift and I just let it work. Now, so I guess you could say my style is Afrocentric. It's a fusion of whatever. In other words, you can give me a tin can and I can make it happen. I can make you be like, what? You did all that from a tin can? Yeah. I just have that ability. Everybody doesn't have it. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
It does. It does.
Oh,
well, let me ask you this.
mm-hmm.
What do you prefer to do, or what do you enjoy doing? Is it charcoal and ink drawings or acrylic painting?
I would say my strongest suits are pen and ink, color pencil, and acrylics. Now, when I was younger, I used to do a lot of oil paintings, but I can't remember the last time I've done oil. Chemicals, the smell, and all of those types of things that can get into your system. And acrylics are so much, you can't, sometimes people who don't know art, they can't tell the difference between an acrylic or oil painting. You know, and the thing I like about acrylics is that you can work fast and it dries well and it lasts for a long time without cracking. Like with oil paints, over time, it'll dry out and it'll crack. Whereas with acrylics, it's like a poly, I can't pronounce it, but it's like a resin. It's like a plastic. And whenever it gets a little dust, you just can take a damp rag and just wipe it down and the dust is gone. And it has a longer lifespan. Yeah. And I learned to start painting in acrylics when I was in middle school. I had a teacher who taught me, and I think at that time, acrylics was just beginning to come out. And when she showed me that, I'm like, oh, okay. So I've been doing acrylics since middle school. Yeah.
Wow.
That was going to be one of my questions as to when did you start?
Right.
Okay.
And
When did I start?
What was that like?
Probably around 5 or 6. I would say around about
Wow.
6. And what I tell people, my first teachers were not school teachers. My first art teachers were not school people. I lived in projects of Richmond, Virginia, a little place called Jackson Ward. In my apartment building, there was a gentleman who lived next door to me. His name was Andrew Williams, who was an artist. And he would be in the hallway, and he would always be sitting there drawing. And one day I was just standing there looking at it. He says, "You want to learn how to do this?" And from that time, I used to copy everything he did. I used to sit down there, and he told me, he says, "Hey, man, you have the talent, you have the gift." And I've been doing it ever since. But downstairs from me, there was a gentleman named James Jackson. James Jackson was a wood carver. I could walk downstairs, and he'd be sitting in his doorway just carving wood. And he asked me one day, he said, "Hey, you want to learn how to do it?" And the only thing he told me, he says, "Just be careful. Everything is very sharp." He taught me how to carve wood to the point that I could make a pair of earrings out of a clothespin.
Wow.
And when I went, by the time I got to high school, I was making girls' jewelry, earrings, and stuff out of wood. So, those were my first teachers. And when I got to school, I always worked on, you have the bulletin board or the stage set or things of that nature. So I was always, I was a guy that would draw your pictures out of the history book for a quarter or something like that. That was me. Yeah.
Wow.
That's great, man.
That is great.
Barbara, did you have something
I
else?
do.
Okay.
Art,
go
you
ahead.
mentioned you were a resident, originally from Richmond, Virginia. How did you get to the Emerald Coast? How did you get down to Fort Walton Beach?
You kind of broke up a little bit. Try that again.
You mentioned you were originally from Richmond, Virginia.
Right.
How did you get to Fort Walton Beach? What brought you down to the Emerald Coast?
I was going to school in college at Virginia Commonwealth University School of Art in Richmond. And I'll tell people this story. I was one of the last of the Mohegans to get drafted in the military.
Wow.
Now listen to the story. I finished college May the 25th. I got my draft notice on the 28th to report June the 3rd to the Army. Now, at that time, they used to have the college deferments. Well, on the sound, so many people going to college, they decided, we don't want the deferment anymore. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a lottery system. Yeah. I got hit by the lottery system. My number was 6. Now, man, listen to this. Now, listen to this. 2 weeks after I signed my paperwork to go in, they cut the draft out. There was no more draft.
Wow.
I called and I said, "Hey, man, there's no more draft. Can I get out?" He said, "Sorry, you didn't sign the papers. You got to go." So I went to late enlistment into the military in September of 72. And I got out in May of 82. So I did about 9.5 years in the Air Force. And my travels, I went overseas and things of that nature. And I just did art all throughout my whole military career. And then that's how I got here to Fort Walton through the military.
Okay.
My number was 219.
Well,
so when they started that,
like I said,
that was a scary day. It was a scary day when they started drawing the numbers.
Yeah. One of the things they did was that pressed a lot of young Black men to go into the service, the draft. I look at it today and I said, we need another draft. And I said, because if we had another draft, we wouldn't have a shortage of troops. We would always have this country protected. Right now, I ain't banking on these kids to protect me. I'm sorry. You better get your gun. Because I'm telling you right now, with the way the world is right now, and I see some of these young men and women that's going in the military, I'm like, okay, I'm not depending on them. That's for sure. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, Michael, Barbara, you got anything else?
Well, yeah, since we're talking about the military, and by the way, Art, thank you for your service and the time you invested, the unselfishness. What I like to ask you is, and I know the barbershop is known for solving the world's problems and what have you, especially from a political nature. You get it done in the barbershop. Could you tell me, from the barbershop perspective, what's the position of U.S. being involved in Ukraine and now with the Houthis? What does the barbershop feel about that?
You know what? I think the barbershop don't even really care. I just really don't. I mean, I listen to these guys, man. They be like, look, we done got ourselves in more messes over the years. When you think about all the wars we have started, all the blood that we as a country have on our hands, and we always going to save everybody. it's not our job to save the world. That's what most of the guys say. It's not our job to save the world. And it's not. We go into countries that really, they only want our money and our guns. They don't want democracy. Sometimes people love to know who putting their foot in their behind. And that's why when you see these dictatorships, these people are fine until we step in there and say, you need democracy. When I was overseas, the only thing the people loved overseas, they loved the American people and they loved the American dollar. But far as you saving their lives, they loved their country the way it was. And we intervene and try to make everybody think that the democratic way is the way to go. But those people have been living under that regime for all of these years. But we go in and say, hey, we can fix it for you. Let's give you some money and some troops, and you'll be just fine. I don't see nobody going over to Haiti trying to save nobody.
Right.
I don't see nobody going to any of these dark third world countries trying to save anybody. But like Trump said, if you give more people that look like me, we'll have a better country.
Mm.
That's the reality of where we are in the United States. That's the way they feel.
Right.
I mean, that's my opinion, you know.
And I think because of the number of military bases in the area, a lot of your customers are currently in the military. And is that correct?
That is
And
so
so
correct.
you're getting the opinion straight from the horse's mouth then.
Right.
Well, see, and you got this new generation of soldier now. These guys that go in the military now, they want one thing. Well, I take that back. They want the education. They want the benefits. They ain't talking about going to no war. They ain't talking about going to some country, fight some people that ain't done nothing to them, that they don't even know anything about. Only thing you know is that we say that they bad folks, so let's go kill them. I mean, that's the way these young folks think. You don't have that same, I guess, the bravado about let's go get them. That is not the way these young folks think nowadays. They're actually beginning to think for themselves. And the problem with that is now you have a generation of military kids who said, I want to wear my hair the way I want it. I want my tattoos all the way down my arm. I want to have hair all the way down my back. And guess what? They're catering to that. Now you got guys going to basic training. They can call time out. I don't want to run right now. I'm tired. And they can stop. You can't curse. You can't get in their face and curse like they did when we went in. They can't do that anymore. They can put up a timeout card. I'm just telling you the way it is now. We have a softer, gentler military. And what I'm afraid of is that if we go into all-out war, these kids don't know about no fighting and no war. I'm telling you, man. I don't think so. That's my opinion.
They can call time out, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, you shoot in time out. Now you got listen. We don't we can talk on this barbershop stuff all day. I'll tell you one thing that Obama did that I did not like when he came up with this theory that men can go into service and get a sex change operation at the expense of the government. Did you hear what I just said?
Yeah.
You can get sex change at the expense of the government. Now, my problem with that is how long they're going to stay after they get their sex change.
Right.
Are they committed to 20 years? Or are they committed to, well, my time's up, I'm out of here, I got what I wanted. And what if something goes wrong? Who's going to pay for it? That sounds like about 100% disability for the rest of your life. Think about it.
That's right.
That's a lot of money. A lot of money. But that's where we're turning to. I mean, this is where the country is morally bankrupt. That's my opinion. Right. That's barbershop talk right there. Yeah.
Right.
Sound a little like a Republican there.
Sound like I'm a Republican? I'm an independent now, bro. Because you know what? Neither one of them.
Yeah.
I throw my hands up, bro. I'm sorry.
So you call time out, huh?
Yeah, he called time out.
Hey, listen, man, y'all gonna do what y'all do. I'm just gonna y'all just do what y'all gonna do. Because
Mr. J, we appreciate you.
What we've noticed is this: from the last couple of elections, does your vote really matter? That's a question that you have to really say. Do your vote really matter? And everybody said, oh, yeah, your vote matters. But then when you saw that it went down to a tight race, and all of a sudden they started talking about, oh, we got the Electoral College and all these different things, does your vote really matter? Because when Obama was in office, he couldn't do nothing unless he did a presidential, executive order. Everything he did, they twisted it and said no. And when he left, the only thing that was left was the medical part. And most of those folks didn't even realize that Obamacare was for everybody, and they didn't want that. Until somebody told them, "Hey, you know."
I remember that.
Yeah, it's sad.
They wanted the formal name, but they didn't want Obamacare. It's like
Right.
the same thing, man.
Right.
Anyway, all right. Well, all right. We appreciate you, man.
Hey, look,
Thank
I
you
appreciate
so much
y'all
for
having
being
me.
with us.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys, and it's a pleasure meeting you, Mike and Barbara. And what's the other lady name?
Sean.
Everybody, thank you so much.
And Emily. Okay.
Thank you for the blessing. I appreciate
Right.
it.
Thank you, man. I'll talk to you about the festival.
All right, man. And y'all have a blessed day, okay?
Appreciate it, man.
And if you need an original Art Jenkins piece, you know how to get in contact with me. And if you can't find me on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever, you just call me directly, 850-357-1083. All right? And we'll make it happen.
I hear
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
I'm glad I got through this.
Okay, well, my closing comments for today, or as I see it, I want to thank Mr. J for being with us today. It was fun. He was great. It reminded me of my play, Speak of Me. And Speak of Me is about 9 guys in a barbershop over 3 Saturdays in downtown Birmingham. So, Mr. J, you brought back those memories for me. Thank you for the memories today. And that is how I see it. I want to say one more thing. Anthony Tedeschi says he'll be having surgery on his right ear on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day. So just take good care of yourself, man. And we'll be thinking about you and maybe send a prayer or 2 up for you. All right. Let's see. So that's Mr. J. We want to thank you for the memories. That's how I see it on this 29th of January in the year 2024. That's our show for today. We want to thank the audience. We we appreciate you. Thank our G-list guest, Mr. J. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl Inc. Thanks again to the TWT team, Barbara, Sean, Emily, Michael, and Joyce. And that's it for this January the 29th. Remember, a day without a smile is a day wasted. If you've got an extra one, give it to somebody else who may need it. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.